Hello, dear listener, I am Dr. Nina, and welcome you, Dr. Nina, YouTube channel family there, are books that societies try to forget, not because they are badly written or meaningless, but because they expose truths that people are not emotionally prepared to confront. These books do not rely on fantasy or cheap shock, they rely on psychology, they dig into the human mind and show how thin the line is between morality and cruelty, between order and chaos. Between a civilized individual and a dangerous one, these books were banned because they reveal something deeply uncomfortable, that evil is not always loud or obvious. It is often logical, calm, and persuasive. The first book takes the reader directly inside the mind of a person who understands exactly what he is doing and still believes he is justified. This is where the darkest psychological secret begins. Humans are not driven by morality. They are driven by narratives we tell ourselves. The brain is capable of justifying almost anything if the story is convincing enough. Psychologists call this cognitive rationalization. When harmful actions are reframed as reasonable, necessary, or even noble, the banned book shows this process in disturbing detail. The narrator does not see himself as a monster. He sees himself as intelligent, misunderstood, and superior. This reflects real-world psychology. Seen in narcissistic and antisocial personalities, they do not lack intelligence. They lack empathy, and the absence of empathy allows logic to become a weapon. The book disturbed readers because it forces them to realize that intelligence does not equal goodness, and eloquence does not equal morality. When someone can explain their actions calmly, the human brain lowers its defenses, and that is how manipulation works. The book was banned because it teaches readers how predators think, how they justify harm, and how easily language can override conscience. This knowledge is dangerous because once you understand it, you can no longer be easily deceived. The second banned book reveals a different psychological truth: the fragility of free will under authority. Most people believe they would resist immoral orders. Psychology proves the opposite. When placed under pressure, fear, and authority, humans tend to obey, even when it violates their values. This book illustrates a society where surveillance is constant and dissent is punished, but the real horror is not the punishment, it is the adaptation. The human mind prioritizes survival over freedom. When resistance feels hopeless, the brain shuts down rebellion. This is known as learned helplessness, and it is one of the most powerful psychological control mechanisms. The book shows how truth itself can be reshaped. When lies are repeated enough times, the brain accepts them as reality. Memory is not fixed. It is reconstructive, and authority can influence it. This is why the book was banned, because it mirrors real psychological experiments, where ordinary people accepted false realities simply because they were enforced by power. It forces readers to ask a question that is deeply unsettling. Would you truly resist, or would you slowly adapt and accept? The third banned book strips away ideology and exposes raw human aggression. It does not blame systems or leaders. It focuses on instinct. This book shows what happens when social restraints disappear. Violence becomes entertainment, empathy erodes, and cruelty turns into stimulation. Psychology calls this desensitization. Repeated exposure to violence reduces emotional response until suffering no longer feels real. This book terrified educators because it challenged the comforting belief that civilization automatically makes humans moral. In reality, morality requires constant reinforcement, remove consequences and structure, and many individuals revert to dominance behavior. The book was banned because it suggested that darkness is not taught, it is revealed when limits are removed. The fourth banned book, Ours, explores. There are books that do not ask for permission before entering your mind. They do not entertain, they invade. These banned books were not removed because they were false, but because they were accurate. Accuracy can be dangerous when it exposes how humans actually think. The darkest psychological secret revealed by these books is that morality is not fixed, it is conditional. It changes based on context, power, and fear. The next psychological layer these books expose is identity erosion. When individuals are stripped of personal responsibility, they become capable of acts they would never commit alone. This is known as diffusion of responsibility. When harm is shared, guilt feels lighter. The mind convinces itself that accountability belongs to the system, not the individual. This is why people participate in collective cruelty. The banned books demonstrate how easily people hide behind roles, uniforms, titles, and ideologies. Once identity dissolves, behavior changes. Another disturbing insight is emotional detachment. The human brain can shut down empathy to function under stress. This survival mechanism becomes dangerous when prolonged. These books show characters who slowly lose emotional response, not because they are evil, but because constant exposure rewires the brain. Neuroscience confirms this emotional numbing. occurs when the brain protects itself from overload. The result is a person who can witness suffering without reaction. This is not fiction. It is seen in soldiers, prison guards, and bureaucratic systems. The books were banned because they exposed this mechanism without offering comfort or redemption. They did not reassure readers that humanity always wins. They showed that humanity often adapts to darkness. Another psychological truth revealed is the illusion of choice. Many characters believe they are making free decisions, but every option is controlled. Psychologists understand that when choices are limited, behavior becomes predictable. The books show how people mistake constrained options for freedom. This illusion keeps systems stable and individuals compliant. The books were dangerous because they taught readers to recognize manipulation patterns, repetition, emotional conditioning, fear-based messaging, and reward-punishment cycles. These are the same techniques used in cults, propaganda, and abusive relationships. Once you see the pattern, it loses power. That is why the books were banned. They create psychological immunity. Another theme is self-deception. The human mind is skilled at protecting its self-image. People commit harmful acts while maintaining a positive self-concept. This is achieved by minimizing harm, blaming victims, or redefining morality. The books force readers to confront this uncomfortable truth that good people can do terrible things without seeing themselves as bad. This realization threatens social narratives built on hero-villain simplicity. The books were banned because they collapse that illusion. They show that darkness is not an external force. It is a potential within the human mind activated by environment, pressure, and permission. The final psychological secret these banned books reveal is that awareness is irreversible once the mind recognizes manipulation, conformity, and rationalization. It cannot return to innocence. This awareness creates discomfort, questioning, and resistance. Systems that rely on compliance cannot allow that. That is why banning occurs, not to protect morality, but to protect stability. These books were not dangerous because they encouraged harm. They were dangerous because they explained it. Understanding is the first step to resistance, and resistance is what power fears most.